we have one more speech before I say anything. Am I sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it now because I still have my speech to go. So, but this man, he is he is one hell of a dad, and he sets a standard that is higher than any of us could ever hope to achieve as a dad. And he has been, for me, a rock and an inspiration. But most importantly, he has. Since that day I told him in the car just to love me like I am, he has loved me more than I could ever have hoped for. So I'd like to present to you one of the greatest preachers in America, and definitely one of the greatest dads in the world.
Chris asked me to give a speech, and I promise you I will keep it brief. He said, Dad, you don't have to keep it brief, but I have enough sense to keep it brief. I want to say to the Reverend Jeannie Peyton, you did a magnificent job. Even though I have performed over 4,000 weddings, I could not do that good, and we commend you on that. Thank you for sharing that. I want to share with you a couple. Life's made up of moments. You don't experience life all in one day or one night or one moment. It's made up of moments. And we have come today. This is a transition. This is a process that brought us from that day to this day. And that's what we tell other families when their children come out, and we do go to help other families. We tell them that this is a process. Love your child as they are. And God has opened the door. Keep in mind, I'm a minister. You'll just have to get religious for the next 7.5 minutes. Amen. God has opened the door for us to minister to family after family who their child came out and they were devastated. Some of them were going to put their child out of the house, and God has helped us go to them, and especially this lady, and tell them, you are not going to do that. You're going to love them just like they are. And when she gets through with them, they do. As Ashe said, there are highs and lows, and this is a high day, and there have been lows throughout the years. And we love our son. He was born. We had our other son is here, Wes Jr. I don't know if he's made it right. He was down this a while ago, but he's there. This is our other son. We welcome he and Kelly this evening. He has given us 3 wonderful grandsons. But he was born very quickly after we were married. I was 19, Jeannie was 20. This young man took 5 years to come along. I would like to testify it was 5 of the best years of my life, but I was able for him to be born. So you know now why he's so special. And as he grew up, he was unique. We didn't know when he was a child he was going to be gay. We should have noticed when he did not like sports, but he wanted to take French and play the flute. That could have been a sign that we were heading in that direction. Most of you today do not know that this is a miracle far greater than you can. My denomination, my background, there are 18 ministers in my family. It is extremely conservative. When I grew up, I was not allowed to attend movies, dance, do anything like that. Never mind have a gay son. So to come here today is a miracle. Chris and I have had a lot of discussions through the years, and I'll never forget when I was pastoring. Our church had 900 parishioners, and it was a very successful church. And Chris was a teenager, and he was going to buy clothes at the Salvation Army. And my board, Deacon Board, called me one day and said, why is your son dressing like this? We pay you good money. I said, because he wants to dress like this. A few years ago, he came home from London. He traveled the world, and he had to put more pages in his passport because China takes so many when you go into China, Russia. And he and I were riding down to the where he gets his passport worked on there, the State Department. And I looked over at him, and I was sincere in this statement. You have to know me. I said to him, Chris, they may not help you today. You look like a homeless person. And in his very sweet way, he said, Dad, these are designer jeans. I paid a fortune for them. And they did help him that day. So through the years, there's been a growing process and a loving process. And there have been highs and there have been lows. But all in all, it's been a high time as he's brought immeasurable joy into our lives. We've traveled the world because of him. He didn't move back home. We had to go see him. We've been to Colombia, South America, been to London, been to Paris, and now we are in Spain. God only knows where next we're going. But we have done this to be with our son. And he has helped me, with my very conservative background, to expand my thinking. I married over 4,000 couples in the Washington, D.C. area, of all faiths, no faiths, and that many would come and apologize and say, oh, Reverend Peyton, I'm not religious. And I would say to them, God didn't call me to judge. He called me to love. Amen. And I would marry them because of my son. So life is defined by moments, and this is a magic moment. Being the dad I am, as the time went by, past 3 o'clock today, I kept texting him. I'm still a father. And at 3:45, I text him, don't miss your magic moment. Get out of there and come down. And as usual, he ignored me, and I got no reply. We were there for Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. I believe that's the name of it. We were the only parents that came. We had never talked to our church, our leadership, or any of our friends about our son being gay. We just loved him. We never discussed it. And one day, Chris called me from London and said, Dad, you and Mother are going to have to come out of the closet. Why do we have to come out of the closet? He said, because I've won the part as chef on the Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. And he's not that great a cook, but he won the part. So we talked it over and decided to fly over for that opening night. He had us picked up in a limo and took his mother out and had her in the most fabulous dress you've ever seen. And we were ushered in, the only parents there. And it was such a highlight of our life to be there. And Jason was there to share that moment with him. And I could share, and I will not take much more time tonight, but I must share with you. Well, I could share about the time you were in South America and came home, and I was standing at the luggage rack to meet you when life had dissolved. And I shared with him a book I had read, that a setback is a setup for a comeback. You remember that, don't you? And I would call him day after day and quote that and leave him messages. A setback is a setup for a comeback. You're going to make it. But God has blessed us and blessed us with 2 wonderful sons, 3 beautiful grandsons. And I will share this with you. I want, first of all, to say I don't know all your parents. I don't know your relationship. Some of you I know have not had this kind of relationship. Don't give up. Love them and care for them. And just in time, it may just fold into a beautiful thing. There's always hope and love. It's been the greatest love here I've ever felt, I believe, in my life, right here among all of you. It's been wonderful. I'm going to share with you in closing a very real moment that exposes me as a real person and life. Jean and I went to London, England. Chris had come out. He'd gone back to England. He was actually, it was the first time we saw him actually with a partner living in a flat. And we landed and we discussed this. I was struggling with all of this. I'll be honest with you. This was all a process. And I was struggling, and we got to London, and we went out with them, and Chris showed us all over England, and Chris Stedman, of course, was there, and Chris had gone out and bought, whether he agrees or not, the ugliest scarf ever made in the world. Very long, ugly scarf. And Jean and I, we went by Harrods, you know of Harrods in London. And I whispered to my wife, I said, let's take Chris inside and buy him a nice scarf. And she whispered back to me, shut up. He loves that scarf, and he bought that scarf. But it was God ugly. I want to tell you that. The last day, one of the most memorial times I've ever had. They had us to their flat for lunch. Lovely little lunch. And here again, now remember, this is a stretch for parents and for a father that's a minister, and it's a process. And we go and have a lovely lunch. Just a sweet time in the flat. And our hotel was but a few blocks away, so we could walk back. We got ready to leave, and I said to Jeannie, "Where's your scarf?" And she said, "I left it at home. I didn't bring it to London with me." And I took my scarf off, and I said, "Here, you can have my scarf." Chris immediately said, "Dad, hold on." And he went back to the bedroom and brought out that God ugly scarf. But when he took that scarf, he tenderly wrapped it around my neck. And he whispered in my ear, "You're the most wonderful father a son could ever have." We left and walked back. It was lightly snowing. We'd gone a couple blocks, and Jeannie looked over at me and she said, "How do you like your scarf?" I said, "I believe this is the most beautiful scarf I've ever had in my life." My last thought to you today is, remember that love can turn something that you think is ugly into something that is beautiful with your only love.